Hello, everyone. Welcome to the CXO Spice Talk. Today's topic is smart experience and digital agility. Our special guest today is Mike Leff, VP of Integrated Solution and Consulting at AT&T Business. Hi, Mike. Welcome to the Spice Talk.
Hey, Helen. Thanks. Great to be here with you.
Yeah, before we dive into our discussion today, Mike, tell us a little bit about your backstory in tech.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Look, I mean, as I grew up, I was always curious as a kid as to how things work. And so I ended up studying electrical engineering and mathematics in undergraduate level, and I received a master's in applied information technology with a concentration in cybersecurity. And so that definitely was helpful in terms of quenching my thirst and satisfying the need of wondering how things come together in this world. I then had the opportunity to begin my career in aerospace and then had the opportunity to touch a variety of different industries and technologies to include things like consulting, technology services, outsourcing. I was able to get into energy management field, health information technology, and most recently at AT&T, I had the opportunity to really go deep with the teams that I work with around leveraging AT&T's global assets that include things like network, cloud, voice collaboration, IoT, 5G mobility, and cybersecurity. And so I would tell you that it's very cool to have the opportunity to work for a company that has such a rich history and heritage of driving the kind of innovation and taking on a leadership position and creating and delivering really some of the best connectivity experiences in the world.
Well, I'm honored to have you here, Mike. I find that natural curiosity is the most critical ingredient for any successful business people, right, today. And, speaking of digital transformation, it is on top of mind across the C-suite today, not just in the CIO or CTO's office, right? This really comes after 14 years of when the cloud appeared on the scene. So when do you really think organizations started seriously looking at the move to the cloud as not just a nice to have, but must do in their digital transformation?
Well, look, I think clearly over the last couple of years, the last 3 to 5 years, companies really started to begin to understand the benefits of moving to the cloud. But I will tell you that I think the global pandemic over the last couple of years was a huge accelerator and changed everything across a number of different industries. I mean, if you just take retail and you look at an auto parts store, for example, that had little to no online presence, all of a sudden, because of the pandemic, customers didn't want to go into that brick and mortar store, right, anymore. And we saw businesses simply going out of business. And so stores like these needed to quickly scale up their online presence and meet the customer demand and expectations virtually. And I think we saw this repeatedly in several industries, really that touched healthcare, retail, finance, manufacturing, energy, and even transportation. And it's not just COVID, Helen. I think about retail stores that are scaling up and down during the holiday seasons. It's only part of the year that they need to be able to expand their capacity to handle all the increased demand. And so any retailer traditionally would have to set up on-prem data centers to meet a demand of a couple of months out of the year. And then on top of that, they're paying for that investment that they don't quite use throughout the entire year. So moving to the cloud is an absolute necessity. And I will tell you the things that businesses look at as I'm out speaking with CXOs across industries is the ability for the cloud and the edge to offer things like nimbleness, agility, flexibility, speed, and most importantly, right, the ability to wrap all that with security. And I will tell you that digital transformation and the move to the cloud enables these needs. And like we had discussed, it's no longer a nice to have, but it really becomes a business imperative. I would also close out just by saying, look, if you look at what the move to the cloud, out to the edge has in common across all these different industries, I think it really comes down to a couple of things. It's a very significant drop in total cost of ownership, a whole different move in terms of, going from a business model that relied heavily on capital expenditures to more of an OpEx model, faster time to market, increased return on investment, and and most importantly, enabling better customer experiences.
Yeah, you're right on, Mike, right? This customer experience is such a differentiation for any business, regardless of the industry. But I'm interested in drilling into a little bit more about manufacturing, right? Are we seeing more manufacturers migrate to the cloud as part of their digital transformation strategy? If so, why now?
Yeah, we're seeing a big movement with manufacturers beginning to move to the cloud as they begin their digital transformation journey. But they haven't necessarily been first adopters in this space. And I think that's for good reason. If you think about a factory floor, you've got lots of machines and robots, right, on-prem that have a significant amount of compute and storage requirements supporting them right there on the factory floor. These endpoints need very low latency and high speed. So moving to the cloud really wasn't an option over the past couple of years. But now you have companies like AT&T Business working with major cloud service providers that are enabling them to digitally transform, moving the cloud really closer to the edge. And it's closer to the endpoints themselves that are on that factory floor in these manufacturing facilities. And so take the AT&T network edge, for example. Now the cloud is something like 75 milliseconds closer to the endpoints than before. And the cloud was perhaps hundreds of miles away in the past from that factory floor. And so I think AT&T, cloud service providers, the manufacturers are all collaborating much more closely on incredible and new emerging technologies and use cases that are used to optimize their operations, increase safety, as well as lower costs.
That's very impressive, right? Migrating to the cloud is not like flipping a switch. We all know that. And you have to think about not just the cloud service providers, but connectivity to the cloud, security and compliance and data vulnerability that goes with that, as well as if you have on-staff expertise to make a move from on-prem to cloud. Can you talk to us about everything you see that goes into the digital transformation like this today?
Yeah, sure. Look, I would say it's a lot that goes into it, and it's incredibly heavy lift. I like to think about in terms of migration. Just pick a single application going from an on-prem to the cloud. You got to be able to assess. You got to look at the cloud readiness of that application, as well as the company and consumers and customers using an application. You got to think about how do you connect to the cloud? How do you design it? How do you migrate it? And if I can just unpack that, when I think about assess, really that's identifying all the systems from the infrastructure to the applications, that the data, all the way up the stack, and looking at the various workload profiles and mapping out how you would assess and look at how to migrate those applications. Cloud readiness, what do you do with the app? You got to rehost it. You got to re-platform that application. You got to repurchase it, refactor it. You got to retire the legacy application, and you got to retain. And I'll focus as I unpack that specifically on the connect piece, because I think this is where AT&T Business comes in. We can help companies with finding the optimal connectivity solution for their digital transformation. I tell you, connectivity is key. It's not just getting to the cloud quickly, but it's getting to the cloud quickly and securely. So I will tell you, without the right connectivity, the move to the cloud will not be successful. And we've got a lot of subject matter experts within AT&T, Integrated Solutions, and the consulting organization who specialize very specifically in this type of work. Mm-hmm. And finally, in the area of connectivity, some of the guidance we often give to CXOs is we ask things like how to connect directly to the cloud. How does software-defined wide area network figure into this, particularly in light of this new trend where you're seeing network and security converge at the edge? We think about where and when wireless options make sense, 5G versus a direct connect. So these are some of the things that we think about when it comes to migrating.
That's such a salient point, Mike, right? It's not just about the connectivity, but it is a secured connectivity. So that's really fascinating to see what AT&T has already done or is about to do, in the marketplace. I actually paid a visit, right, to Manufacturing by Digital. I'm not sure if you've been there. I went there last March and then was in awe of the smart factory demonstration provided by AT&T. So what are the key considerations for manufacturers to adopt this smart factory where quality control or workforce safety monitoring can be automated?
Yeah, Helen. So yeah, I have been out to the facility. It's impressive. And for those of you that don't know about MXD, it stands for Manufacturing Times Digital. It's a research factory used to test and demonstrate a lot of the new emerging trends and technologies. And at an MXD, manufacturers can experience digital solutions they need to help optimize operations, increase safety, and lower costs. And the AT&T space, we actually have space at MXD that demonstrates, for example, looking at the application of an IoT-based video intelligence application on a local 5G plus, that's a millimeter wave network, using our multi-access edge compute. So in simple terms, right, it's a solution in AT&T's private cellular suite, really showcasing how incredibly lightning fast data transfer can take place with very low latency in several use cases. At MXD in Chicago, AT&T is demonstrating how video intelligence using 5G and the Internet of Things can provide really very near-time insights, actionable insights to drive decisions into operations onto the factory floor. Let me think. The other is demonstrating 3 use cases using AT&T 5G around production monitoring, monitoring inventory, and as you mentioned, safety monitoring.
Very, very impressive. So speaking of the smart factories, could you share a customer success story of the impact of emerging technologies to solve problems on the factory floor?
Sure, yeah. I mean, one that comes to mind is our work at the Samsung Austin Semiconductor Fabrication Facility. That's a mouthful. We built a manufacturing focused 5G innovation zone, really to explore new ideas and technologies using the 5G network to improve the manufacturing environment and create a smarter factory. We've got health and environmental sensors demonstrating, again, how 5G and sensors could help first responders better locate employees and speed up response times in emergency situations. Another application would be, think about automated material handling, industrial IoT, and robotics. So again, it's focused on demonstrating how 5G, using things like 4K live video feeds and IoT sensor data, how does that better support the factory automation process? One more that comes to mind is really mixed reality for training, which is a great application. It's using tools such as wireless. You mix that in with augmented reality, along with low latency content delivering from the edge. And what this facilitates, Helen, is that you can provide an untethered capability, a method to virtually train hundreds of employees that are geographically distributed, providing really a very immersive and immediate access experience, right, to equipment diagnostics as well as how to repair equipment.
Well, that's amazing, right? And to be more resilient today, what is that one tech move you would really advise enterprises to take in 2022?
Yeah, you know, all the customers that we speak to, regardless of the industry, have the same expectation. And that is, how do you recover quickly when there's issues? How do you create an environment and in your business that's always on? And so connectivity and security has to be resilient. To do that, you have to have intelligence embedded into the network. So no more dumb pipes, right? You're talking about intelligence and automated network that's got to be able to reroute your data as needed. You got to switch on services near instantly and scale in response to demand. So your business can innovate faster, get products out the door, have a faster time to market. It goes back to the retail example in the holiday season I gave earlier on, Helen. Being able to increase bandwidth on demand, but it also goes beyond that to smartly, how do you arbitrage access? How do you look at the cost models associated, where and how you prioritize traffic, and ultimately ensuring you meet the needs of the business with smart connectivity?
Makes sense, right? I assume your team and yourself work with the CTO quite often. So what advice would you give to the chief technology officers if they want to pitch a digital transformation strategy to the CEO?
Yeah, that's great. So one of the things we do and the guidance that we give to our customers and the teams, right, is really focusing on the business outcomes. What are the business's missions? What are they trying to accomplish? And how do we help them achieve those outcomes? And I'll tell you, it's complicated and challenging, but ultimately, when you think about the benefits of digital transformation, it's really less about the technology, but more about how do you give our customers an opportunity to gain competitive advantage? How do you enable greater efficiencies? We focus on delivering new and immersive customer experiences, while at the same time, how to take out significant costs. And I think you also have to come in with a plan. Do you have the subject matter experts, for example, on staff to enable helping your company modernize? Do they have the resources? And so I will tell you that one of the things we do working closely with our customers within the consulting and the professional services side is leveraging the team of folks that have tremendous domain knowledge within a particular industry and a vertical, decades of experience fueling digital transformation and network, cloud, voice transformation, IoT, 5G, and cybersecurity. So I think that goes a long way when you're speaking to businesses at the CXO, CEO level. It's making sure you're speaking their language and showing that you really have thought through how to de-risk and implement, helping them change and drive transformation within their business.
Yeah, that's a very, I would say, smart, right, advice to the team, right? First, you talk about tied to the outcome, and then two is to speak their language. Absolutely. So how can having a digital transformation strategy help organizations create a more vibrant customer experience?
Yeah, so, when you ask that question, first thing that comes to mind, in an area that we really haven't drilled into much is around healthcare and the transformation from healthcare to connected care. It is fundamentally changing how healthcare is delivered and how it's consumed, where we're now focused on creating a very patient-centric model. And everyone in that industry is reimagining how care is delivered and experienced across the entire continuum of care. Whether it's the waiting room, whether it's the operating room, quite frankly, to the living room, to the bedroom. And I think for the first time, technology is truly putting patients, as I mentioned, at the center of care. Take something like telemedicine. It's almost a throwback to the house call. Right now, with connectivity, the right platforms, the right applications, doctors are able to virtually visit with patients practically in real time, make diagnoses, subscribe treatments, and provide those treatments better, faster, without the patients ever having to leave their homes. And I think this type of capability is now expected. So I think that's a very immersive experience. I'll give you perhaps one of the most exciting things that I see out there about the capabilities is another area within remote monitoring. I think remote patient monitoring has an incredible capability that is beginning to unfold with some of the high-speed, low-latency applications. And we're currently working with companies today creating medical solutions like a connected pacemaker, insertable defibrillator, drug delivery systems built on a reliable framework that provides that security and consistent connection where critical and life-saving care can be delivered really anywhere at any time in an always-on configuration.
It's fascinating to see how much impact AT&T is making, right, to people's day-to-day life. So thank you for sharing that. Here comes to my last question. Let's talk about the next frontier. Does AT&T have any future predictions on the next big leap in digital transformation?
Yeah, well, that's a pretty deep question. I'll give you my point of view, right? Not necessarily speaking on behalf of AT&T, but I'll tell you that one of the most exciting things that we're seeing for the first time for many of us in our lifetimes is seeing this fourth industrial revolution unfold. And what I mean by that is that it's a revolution that will demand end-to-end smart integrated solutions no matter what industry you're in. And we've seen elements of the fourth industrial revolution taking place over the past 5 to 7 years. But I think for the first time, we're seeing this incredible confluence of things like 5G coming together with biotechnology, robotics, 3D printing, quantum computing, autonomous vehicles, where we're literally seeing an explosion of endpoints that are connected real time which is bringing tremendous insights to business. And I think it's going to be very powerful as we look at how connectivity really powers everything that's connected. And I think it's an exciting time, Helen, just to close it out, to see what technology can do. And I'm excited to be working really with our customers to show how AT&T Business can enable what comes next.
Absolutely, Mike. It is one of the most exciting times right now, right? So thank you for sharing your wisdom with us today, Mike. My actually biggest takeaway from our conversation today is that organizations' cloud strategy directly impacts digital agility and customer experience, regardless of the industry. And having a deeper understanding of the customer journey is super valuable, right? Because so that the right balance of technology and interaction can be achieved. So most importantly, think about organizations, as you said, need to tie their transformation initiatives to business outcome that leading to become their competitive advantages. Really beyond the tactics you really share today, perhaps the best path to cloud is to be open to possibilities, right? A lot of people, as a matter of fact, might view AT&T as a major provider of mobile and Wi-Fi services to people's homes. But in reality, the nearly 40-year-old company is actually the largest telecommunications company in the world, with a very innovative consulting and professional service team, and working alongside with global enterprise to get them where they need to be, right? I'm so thrilled about the opportunity to work with AT&T, as a matter of fact. So thank you, AT&T Business, for sponsoring this episode of CXO Spice Talk. And thank you everyone for joining us today. Stay hungry, stay bold, and stay grateful.